So without further ado, let's dive into today's agenda. So here's what we're going to cover today. First, we're going to talk about an overview of OpUtils, like what it is and what it does. Next, we'll see how OpUtils helps you overcome modern IT challenges with a closer look at its key capabilities. And finally, we'll talk about why OpUtils is the right choice for managing your network. So with that, let's get started with what exactly is OpUtils. So OpUtils is a comprehensive IP address manager and switch port mapping solution. It comes packed with capabilities that help network administrators understand and manage the address space across today's complex IT infrastructure. Now, most organizations already use some basic IP address management tools, right? But as networks grow and become distributed across subnets, supernets, remote sites, and data centers, most of these tools just don't have what it takes to keep up. So with OpUtils, you can easily manage both IPv4 and IPv6 addresses. It automates end-to-end scanning, and it gives you real-time data insights. You'll get a centralized dashboard that shows key metrics like availability and utilization. And on top of that, OpUtils comes with more than 30 built-in network tools to simplify everyday tasks with just a few clicks. And it also generates detailed reports, and it sends you proactive alerts so that you can resolve these issues before they impact users. And the best part is, OpUtils is super easy to deploy. So you can discover and onboard your resources into the console within a matter of minutes. So it's affordable, it's simple to use, and most importantly, it reduces the manual workload for network admins. Let's take this example. Imagine you're a network admin at a company that's growing pretty fast. So back when you just had a couple of offices and a few hundred devices, you could track IPs manually and keep things under control. But if you fast forward to today, now you've got thousands of devices, you've got multiple data centers, you've got remote offices, and a mix of IPv4 and IPv6. So one moment, everything's totally fine, and then suddenly you've got IP conflicts, you've got devices that can't connect, and a switch port overloads, and you're scrambling to figure all of this out, all while juggling 10 other tasks. Does that sound familiar? So this is where OpUtils changes the game. It automates all of that manual tracking, it scans your entire network, and it gives you real-time visibility in one place. And the real advantage is, it's not just reactive, it's proactive. So OpUtils alerts you before an IP conflict or a switch port overload even becomes a problem, so you can fix it before users even notice. And if you need to share a report, that's not a problem either. So instead of spending hours compiling data, OpUtils gives you ready-to-use reports on IP utilization, on switch port performance, and on your overall network health in just a few clicks. And again, it's super easy to deploy. You can get it up and running within a matter of minutes and instantly access more than 30 powerful tools like ping sweeps, port scans, and more. So that's a quick overview of what OpUtils brings to the table. Now let's see how OpUtils helps you with your IT operations. So what makes OpUtils stand out from other IP address management tools? So we'll be walking through the different modules today so we can see why. So we're going to explore the IP address manager, the switch port mapper, the rogue detection tool, the network tool set, schedules, reports, and alarms, and finally user management. So let's start with the first module, that is IP address manager. Now, before we dive in, let's pause for a minute and ask, why do you even need a dedicated IP address management solution? Now, there's tons of different tools out here, right? Like SNMP utilities or CLI queries that help monitor network address space. But the problem with these is they often leave gaps. They're not always effective for real-time monitoring, and they can create backlogs. So the IPAM module in OpUtils solves this by eliminating manual effort and human error. So it automates subnet discovery, IP data collection, and the status updates for your IPs. So managing an IP database manually isn't easy, right? You'd have to constantly check the network, you'd have to verify the live status of the IPs, and then update your records. Now that's time-consuming, it's error-prone, and it's frankly not scalable. So with OpUtils, the IPAM module takes care of this automatically. It ensures that your IP database is always updated in real time. And another benefit of this automation is that it gives you a single source of truth. So you can track multiple IPv4 and IPv6 subnets and supernets across your entire network, all from one inventory. And the IPAM module also lets you manage IPs flexibly. So you can reserve IPs for static allocation. You can add custom fields to track specific details for subnets or IPs. And you can categorize addresses based on usage or attributes. Now let's also talk about DHCP monitoring. So as you know, DHCP servers are critical to modern IT infrastructures. So since networks rely on dynamic IP allocation, monitoring DHCP scopes becomes just as important. So OpUtils helps you by giving you visibility into DHCP scopes, and it shows you how individual IPs are behaving and how they're mapped. So another key feature is the in-depth MAC insights. So it's not just about IPs, right? You also need to know where and how those IPs are being used. So with OpUtils, you can view detailed MAC address associations, and that helps you understand connectivity patterns. It understands how your network is being mapped, and you can stay ahead of issues. All right, now let's head over to the product demo and see these features in action. So we're looking at the OpUtils demo right here. So if you'd like to follow along with me, just go to OpUtils, demo.oputils.com in your browser. We'll share the link for that in the chat. And you can follow this presentation along with me. So let's dive into the first module, which is the IP address manager module. Yeah, so we're in the IP address manager module, and the first step is discovering your IPs. So the first step is to discover your IPs. So you can do this by hovering over the add button. So you can you can add your IPv4 subnets, you can add supernets, you can add DHCP servers and the IPv6 subnets as well. So let's see first how you can add an IPv4 subnet. So you have the option to add them manually, or you can even import them from a CSV file. So OpUtils allows you to create subnet groups based on your needs. So you can add the subnet group as well over here. Then you can fill in the different details here, like the subnet or network address, the subnet name, the description, the VLAN name, location, and so on. And then you have a few functions that need to be performed during subnet discovery. So say, for example, you need to check the IP availability during subnet discovery. So you can check this option to enable that. You also have the option to get the device details using SNMP. And you can select the credentials for that for the same. And you also have a couple more options like performing a DNS forward or reverse lookup, or even getting the device type and hardware details using WMI. So once you fill in all of these details and click on Add, your IPv4 subnet will automatically be added to the console. And in a similar manner, you can also add supernets, your DHCP servers, and IPv6 subnets as well. So once your IPv4 subnet has been added to the console, it'll be automatically presented in the and organized in the tree view. So this tree view is the thing you have on your left-hand side here. So it gives you a hierarchical view that makes it easy to group IP addresses and DHCP servers however you want. So this simplifies the management process and it keeps things very streamlined. You also have something called the donut view over here. So here you can quickly filter and you can view IPs by attributes like the DNS, the Active Directory, or the NIC type. So the donut view makes it simple to visualize utilization and instantly understand how your IP space is being used. Let's go back to the tree view and let's look at the subnet details. Let's look at the summary tab first. So the summary tab here gives you an overview of all of your overall IP address utilization, especially all of the IPs that you've discovered in OpUtils and how they're being used. So you have your group summary here. You can see the total number of IPs, the total number of subnets, the usage percentage, the reverse lookup failed or the forward lookup failed. Then you have your IP availability, you have your DNS status here, and you also have the subnet summary. So this is about the summary tab. Let's look at the subnet details now. So in the subnet details tab, you can see a visual representation of your IP utilization here. So OpUtils automatically scans subnets or IPs at regular intervals using schedules. But let's say you've made a quick change in your network and you want to scan something right away. So OpUtils also lets you trigger an on-demand scan right here if you click on this button. And you can scan a subnet right away directly from the console. And it's also just as easy if you want to make any edits to a subnet or even delete a subnet. So scanning is simple, it's flexible, and it keeps your IP data up to date in real time. Next, let's talk about the IP details tab. So this view gives you a complete picture of each individual IP addresses that you're monitoring. So you can view this data directly in the console, or you can export it as a CSV or a PDF file. So here, let me also quickly talk to you about the utilization statuses of the IPs. There's 3 of them here. There's transient, there's used, and there's available. So if an IP is marked as used, that means you won't be able to allocate it to another device. If the status is marked as transient, that means the IP is in its cool-off period and it can only be used once it's been made available. And if an IP is available, that means you can allocate it to a device. So if I were to click on an IP, it takes me to the IP summary page. So here, OpUtils shows you a bunch of information like the IP address itself, the connected MAC address, the status of the IP, the switch port or interface details, and some physical properties like the system description, the system name, or even the last logged in user. So all of this information is consolidated into a single view. Now you might be wondering, how can so much information appear in one place? So that's because OpUtils is tightly integrated into all of its modules. So the IP address details come from the IP address manager module. The interface and switchport details come from the switchport mapper, and we're going to talk about this module next. And the user details come from the OpUtils integration with Active Directory. So what you get here is a holistic view of not just the IP itself, but also how it's connected, where it's located, and how it's being used across your network. So now let's get back into the IPs themselves. So how do we actually manage them? So in most networks, you'll find a mix of dynamic IP allocation and static IP allocation. So with dynamic allocation, the process is automated. You don't really need to track every single detail manually. But with static allocation, you need to be a bit careful, because if you allocate an IP statically but don't mark it as such, there's a chance that it could accidentally get reused for dynamic allocation. And that's where you get an IP conflict. So how do we prevent that? So you can select your IPs here. You can select your IPs that you want. And over here, you'll see a mark as option, and you can mark it as reserved or unreserved. So reserved IPs are basically IPs that you're planning to use elsewhere. So you and your team can exclude these from dynamic allocation, making sure there's no overlap or conflict. It's not just the reserved IPs. You can also mark an IP's availability status as used, available, or transient. And OpUtils also integrates with its rogue detection module, so you can tag an IP as trusted, rogue, or guest. Now, we're going to explore this section more in the later part of the session. How do you simplify monitoring the IPs that you're managing? So you can use the filter tabs here, and you can instantly filter all of your used IPs, all of the available IPs, all the transient IPs, the unscanned IPs, and even the reserved static IPs. So this makes it really easy to keep track of what's in use and what's available at any point. Also talk about customizing this data that you see here. So by default, OpUtils gives you a bunch of built-in columns. So you've got your IP address here, you've got the type, you've got the MAC address, the IP to DNS, DNS to IP, the DNS status, etc. Right? But what if you want to track something unique, like which network admin is responsible for a particular subnet, or any other custom details specific to your organization? So that's where custom columns comes in. So if I were to click on this Add Custom Column button, From here, you can create a custom column either at the subnet level or the IP level. And I have a bunch of other details here. I can enter the column name, the data type. I can give the default value and the description if I want. I can choose to enable color coding even. If I do that, I can get custom columns added to my at the subnet or IP level. So here you also have the IP history tab. So this lets you track historical usage of your IPs. And you also have the alerts tab. So here, all of the alerts that were raised for your IPs will be displayed here. So you have your IP address, you have the exact time the alert was generated, you have the alert type, and you have the remarks. For example, this IP, it shows that forward lookup returns a different IP. So now let's get back to the tree view, and let's look at how OpUtils helps monitor your DHCP servers. If I want to add a DHCP server, I can hover over the Add button again. I can click on Add DHCP server. Now, first I'll have to enter the server name, the server type. So OpUtils supports Microsoft DHCP, Palo Alto, firewalls, the Linux DHCP, Cisco, and Fortinet firewalls, and Fortinet firewall DHCP servers. So for this example, let's just select a Microsoft DHCP server. I can choose the AD domain. If I click on Add, my DHCP server will be added to the console. So let's assume this is a DHCP server that I've just added. So if I click on it, you'll see first a DHCP summary. So you have a bunch of information here, like the server name or the IP. You have the credentials, you have the server type, you have the MAC address, you can see the number of scopes, the total IPs, number of leased or reserved IPs, the IPs available for leased, and the last time this was scanned. You also, next you have the scope details. So you have details like the scope address, the scope name, the total number of IPs, the leased IPs, and reserved IPs. And here we also have the IP address tab. So here you get a full list of the IPs managed by that DHCP server. So you can also filter based on leased or reserved IPs. So if I go to this filter tab here, if I go under the DHCP status, I can filter these IP addresses based on the leased or reserved IPs. OpUtils also offers an interesting feature called MAC filtering. So this is a crucial security feature. So MAC address filtering helps network administrators secure DHCP environments by controlling which devices can receive IP addresses. So as you know, every device has a unique MAC address. So with this feature, admins can approve the trusted devices while blocking unauthorized or rogue devices before they even connect. So any devices that you've blocked will be displayed here. So I'll explain how you can block devices in a later part of the rogue detection module of the presentation. Due to security reasons, we've had to disable this feature in the online demo. But basically, any device that you've blocked using the rogue detection module will be, those devices will be listed here. So unlike switchboard blocking, which stops devices at a physical port level, MAC filtering works at the DHCP layer. So it denies the IP allocation regardless of where the device connects. So we also have another handy feature called the IP request tool. So if I can access that by going under settings and click on new IP request. So what's the use of this? Let me give you a simple example. Imagine that I'm hosting an interview tomorrow for 5 candidates for my development team. So instead of manually tracking and allocating the IPs, I can simply raise an IP request in OpUtils. So it allows me to allocate groups of specific IPs from a particular subnet as per my requirements. So if I click on new IP request here, I can enter the number of IPs. So let's say I want 5 of them. I can enter the purpose, the location, and the department. So then I can select the preferred subnet. So OpUtils will then list all of the available IPs in that particular subnet. So let me just select this subnet here. And from here, I just need to select the 5 IPs that I want. And then I can click on next. So before submitting it, I'll get a quick preview of my request. And once I submit it, the request goes to the network administrator who can view it in the IP request console. And that will be visible visible here. So this is how it will show up. So the admin has the option to approve, to modify, or deny the request based on the availability. So once approved, the IPs are allocated manually, and it will show up in this manner. Now let's get back to the demo. So lastly, before we move on, we also talk about the IPAM dashboard. So this is the dedicated IP address manager dashboard over here. So as you can see, it comes with a bunch of different widgets that helps you visualize your network data. So because networks generate massive amounts of data and it's coming in real time, dashboards like this help you make sense of it all. So for example, here you can see the top 10 subnets with the occupied IPs, the top 10 groups with occupied IPs. So these give you a quick visibility into your resource utilization. Then we also have the IP availability summary here. So that tells you how much capacity you still have in your network. And this will help answer important questions like, do I need to scale up my resources? Do I need to downscale anything? Should I allocate a particular subnet to meet a new requirement, and so on? So essentially, the dashboard gives you a clear picture of your utilization and your availability in one place. And if you prefer, you can also add custom dashboards by going to this Add New button and clicking on Dashboard. I can just enter a name and description. So here I can add custom widgets for my own custom dashboard as per my requirements. So you can monitor the exact metrics that matter to you. So that brings us to the end of the walkthrough of the IPAM module. So before I get back into the presentation, I'd just like to remind you that this is a very brief overview of OpUtils. So if you'd like to explore the product in more depth, you can sign up for a free personalized demo. And you can do that by answering the poll our panelists will share with you momentarily. So in the meantime, let's get back to the presentation. And let's have a quick recap of what we saw so far. We saw how OpUtils enables flexible IP discovery. We saw the ability to manage and track IPs using the tree and the donut view. We saw the advanced IP scanner for real-time insights into your IPAM data. We had a look at the IP request tool for planned deployments. We talked a bit about IP history, tracing the usage over time. And we talked about MAC filtering with DHCP monitoring for enhanced security. And we also had a quick look at the dedicated dashboard. Now, let's move on to the switchport mapper module of OpUtils. So IP management and switchport management really go hand in hand when it comes to managing your network address space. But can you imagine manually tracing network cables just to track and manage your switchports? Now, that might work in a very small setup, but in a large network with multiple devices connected to multiple switches, that becomes almost impossible. So this is where the switchport mapper in OpUtils makes life a little bit easier. So with that, you don't need to trace cables at all. It automatically provides you with end-to-end mapping of your switch ports. And it also helps you track complete connectivity details across your access ports, your trunk ports, and your switch ports connected to multiple MAC addresses. So on top of that, it comes with the port view feature. So that lets you visualize your switch ports, and it also shows you critical metrics that you need to monitor. So these metrics give you a clear understanding of how resources are being utilized and mapped across your network. And the best part is, OpUtils actively monitors your switches for issues like port flapping and looping, and it proactively alerts you via email or syslog if anything goes wrong. So you're not just monitoring, you're also preventing potential outages. So now let's jump back into the product and see how this works in practice. So if I click on the switchport mapper tab, so here, first I can discover my switches in OpUtils. So for that, I can hover over the add button, and I have 3 options here. So I can choose to add a switch manually. I can choose to import them from a CSV file, or I can discover a bunch of switches in bulk. So let's go through these one by one. So to add them manually, I just select that here. I can enter I can select the group name. I can add my own credential here. I can give a name for my switch and enter the switch name. Then I can select the credentials that I want here. And here I have a couple of actions that I want to perform. For example, I can choose to get MAC IP from the switch using SNMP, and I can also choose to do a ping sweep here. So once I select all of this and click on Add Switch, my switch will be manually added to the OpUtils console. Then we have the option to import a bunch of switches from a CSV file. So here I just need to click on Browse, and I can import a file from my system. Then I can also select the credentials that I want here. And if I click on Import, my switches will be imported from my CSV file. Then we also have the bulk discover option. So here I can select discover. I can enter the starting and IP range. Then I can choose my credential. I can add custom credentials if I want. Then if I click on discover, the switches mentioned within this IP range will get discovered in one go. So now all my switches are in OpUtils and ready for mapping. So first, let's look at the switch port views. So just like with the IP address manager, you also have the tree view and the donut view here. And then you also have a summary tab first. So let's look at that. So the summary tab gives you give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. I seem to be having an issue with the demo. Okay, we're back. So like I was saying, we have the summary tab. So this gives you an at-a-glance overview of your switch count, of your total number of ports, of your available ports, your transient ports, and so on. So next we have the switches tab right next to that. So this will list every switch with the details like your IP address, the switch name, your DNS name, the utilization percentage, the scan status, and even the last time it was scanned. So in one place, you can discover, you can map and monitor all of your switch ports without touching a single cable. So now let's look at the ports tab. So here you can see all the ports listed in your network. So you may notice that some of these ports are color-coded. So what does that mean? So the ports which are color-coded are highlighted in yellow, as you can see here. Those are the ports connected to multiple MACs. The ones highlighted in gray, those are the stacked ports. And if you find any port highlighted in orange, those are the ports connected to devices with virtual IPs. So you might have ports connected to virtual IPs, to trunk ports, or even multiple MAC addresses. So what if I want to view the connected device details? So I can do that by clicking on a port right here. So let's take this port, for example. So clicking on it will show me all the end devices connected, along with a bunch of details like the interface index, the interface name, the interface speed, the type, the description. I can see the operational status. I can see the availability here, and a few more details. So why does this matter? So as a network admin, having complete visibility into your device mappings is essential. Let's look at the port view next, the port view tab. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, now let's look at the port view tab here. The port view tab lets you visually map your ports to your MAC addresses. So if I simply hover over a port over here, this shows me the details like the interface name and the index, the port number, the status, the MAC address, and the IP address. So why does this matter? Like I said, having complete visibility into your device mappings is essential, right? So this port view, it helps you detect and troubleshoot your issues like the port flapping, looping, or even faulty cabling. So the clearer the mapping gets, the easier it is to isolate and fix your problems that much faster. So now let's go back to this and let's also look at a few more features here. Let's look at this import port details. So let's say I want to monitor a few specific ports directly. So if I just click on import port details, I can browse for my file and I can import them directly. Then we have the custom columns feature similar to the previous module. So I can add my own custom columns for ports. So this gives me the flexibility to track the exact connectivity details that I care about. And similar to the IPAM module, this port history will show me the detection history of ports, including the device changes over time. And then you also have the alerts tab. So that keeps you informed in real time whenever any mishaps occur. And just like the IP address manager module, the switchport mapper module also has its own dedicated dashboard. So let's take a look at that. So this is the switchport mapper dashboard, which you can also customize if you want to and create your own custom dashboard. That was a quick overview of the switchport mapper module. So now let's go back to the presentation and have a quick recap of the switchport mapper module. So we saw how to get started with the switch discovery. We saw how to view the connectivity insights and the utilization metrics. We saw how you can visualize ports in the connected devices. We saw tracking port history, and we also saw the dedicated dashboard. So together, all of these capabilities make troubleshooting a lot easier, and it gives you complete control over your network and switch ports. Now let's move on to the rogue device detection module of OpUtils. So this one is especially important because it's designed to enhance the security of your enterprise network by protecting it against potential threats from unauthorized or malicious devices. So let's think about this from a network admin's perspective, right? So manually tracking and monitoring every single device that enters your network is almost impossible. And especially that's especially true in enterprises that follow bring your own device policies or have tons of IoT devices, or even worse when you're dealing with shadow IT. So in those cases, what you really need is real-time monitoring that can quickly identify and stop a device before it becomes a problem. So that's exactly where the OpUtils rogue detection helps. So one of the biggest advantages is its AD integration. So with AD integration, OpUtils automatically identifies all of the trusted devices that are already part of your AD environment. So this means that OpUtils will automatically classify the devices in your Active Directory as trusted. So on top of that, you can even assign the authenticity tags to devices inside OpUtils. So when a rogue device pops up, you'll know right away. And the best part is, if you find one, you don't have to run around tracing cables or unplugging a bunch of hardware. So OpUtils lets you simply block the device's access directly from the associated switch port. And you can do all of this at the click of a button. But some attackers might also use some advanced techniques like ARP spoofing to sneak into a network, right? Well, OpUtils has you covered on that front as well. So it continuously scans your ARP entries in your network, and that means it can quickly detect spoofing attempts, and it can help prevent them before they cause any damage. So that'll ensure the overall integrity and security of your network. Let's jump into the product now and see how this works. So let's go into the dedicated rogue detection module, the rogue detection tab. So you remember how in the IP address manager or the switchport mapper modules, we had to initiate some sort of discovery action to fetch the IPs of the switches, right? Well, the rogue detection module works a little bit differently. So here you can already see a bunch of devices that are automatically generated. So how does this list get created? So that is through real-time network scanning and the integration with Active Directory. So once you've set up your OpUtils deployment and you've added your IPs, your switches, DNS servers, DHCP servers, the routers, and your Active Directory, OpUtils will start monitoring your entire network. So it keeps an eye on every single device that tries to connect, what IP it's using, which switch port it's on, and so on. So it periodically scans your routers, switches, and your gateway servers to build a complete inventory of the devices on the network, whether they're safe or suspicious. So all of these discovered devices are then listed under this Discover tab of the rogue detection tool. So here you can see the details like the MAC address, the IP address, the DNS name. You can see the exact time it was discovered. You can see the NIC tab and the connected switch port details. So from this view, you can also you can select and mark devices as trusted. So you can mark the devices as trusted, as guest, or rogue. So let's say what happens if you mark a device as trusted. So under the trusted devices, that simply means you're allowing the device to access your network and its resources freely. So these are usually the devices that you've added yourself. So like new servers, routers, or access points while scaling your network, those come under trusted devices. And devices that are already part of your Active Directory are auto-marked as trusted. But let's say you want to import a list of devices that you trust, but that's not listed in your Active Directory. So what you do then is you can click on this Import MAC address details here. And I can select Browse, and I can click on Browse and import a file with my own list of devices here. So then I can also click on a device, an individual device here, and I can inspect each individual device by clicking on its MAC address over there. So here, if I've clicked on a device, I can see its MAC address, I can see its IP address, the DNS name, the last time it was updated, the system OID, the system name, the location, the status, and so on. Now let's talk about the second category of devices, that is guest devices. So this comes in handy when you want to allow temporary access to any device. So for example, let's say your organization is hosting a conference and the attendees are bringing in their own laptops and phones. So if I go back to my discovered devices, I can select the devices that I want, and I can click on these three dots here, and I can mark them as a guest device. So this will provide access to that device for a fixed time period. For example, just the duration of the event. So I can select the date and the exact date and time that I want the device to remain to be accessible. So here's the important bit. Once the validity period expires, if those devices are still communicating with your network, then OpUtils will alert you immediately. So at that point, you have the option to either extend the guest access, or if the event is over, you can reclassify those devices as rogue or trusted devices, depending on the situation. So on that note, let's talk about the last category, which is the rogue devices. So if you ever come across any suspicious devices that you don't want on your network, you can simply select them and you can choose to mark it as a rogue device. So this ensures that the device can no longer communicate with your network. So for example, once you mark a device as rogue, it will show up over here, where it'll show all of the ports and the switches it's connected to if I click on it. So from here, I can also select the rogue device, and I can choose to remotely block the device right from within the OpUtils console. So I've selected a device here. I can choose to block or unblock the switch port. And if you remember, we spoke about the MAC filtering feature earlier in the IP address manager module. So like I mentioned, if I choose to block a device from the network right here, this device, OpUtils blocks this device with its particular MAC address, and all of my blocked devices will appear under the MAC filtering tab that you saw earlier under the IP address manager module. So this remote blocking capability, it means you don't have to run around pulling cables or tracing wires. So OpUtils lets you isolate the device in a matter of seconds. So it's really useful if any unauthorized activity is detected. So admins can quickly cut off unauthorized network access and neutralize the threat with just a few clicks. I also have the option of importing all of these devices either in a PDF or a CSV format. And just like the previous two modules, you also have a dedicated dashboard for rogue detection. So if I click on dashboard and rogue detection, you can see the dedicated dashboard here. So here you can see the recently discovered devices. You can see the devices marked as rogue, the devices marked as guests, and recently marked as trusted. So the dashboard gives you a single pane view to make sure that your network remains safe from unauthorized devices. Now let's have a quick recap of this module. So we saw how OpUtils automatically discovers the devices in your network. We saw how to manually import devices into that module. We saw how to classify them as trusted, guest, or rogue devices. And we saw the connectivity details and how to remotely block or unblock a switch port or a device. So let's now move on to the next module, which is the networking toolset. So OpUtils provides you with a rich set of networking tools to simplify your day-to-day operations. So these tools gives administrators a deeper visibility into their network, so beyond IP address management and switch port mapping. So you've got four network tools here. One is the bandwidth monitor, the config file manager, the network monitor, and your wake on LAN tool. So let's explore each of these in the product demo. So we have a dedicated networking tools tab over here. So let's start with the bandwidth monitor. So this tool allows you to monitor your network's bandwidth usage in real time. So by adding an interface, you can track the details like your device name, the interface speed, the interface name, the status, the volume, the last time it was pulled, and so on. So if I click on a device, this will show me my historical view of the traffic usage, for example, bandwidth consumption, and I can choose to view it monthly, yearly, and so on. So this makes it easier to analyze any trends and to spot any unusual traffic spikes. So next, let's move on to the config file manager. So currently, OpUtils config file manager supports Cisco devices. So using this tool, you can view, you can back up and restore configuration files across different Cisco devices. So this is essentially handy for admins who need to ensure that the device configurations are consistent and recoverable. Then we have the network monitor tool. So this tool helps you keep an eye on your critical network devices by monitoring their availability and their response time through automated periodic polling. So here you can quickly add a device to be monitored. Once again, you have the option to add them manually or import them from a CSV file. You can once again give the IP address or host name. You can select the credentials, and your device will be added here. When you add a device, you'll be able to view details like this, like the IP address, the DNS name, the status, the last time it was updated, etc. And if I click on any particular device, you'll see a device snapshot here with the key information, like the IP address, the last updated time, etc. You'll see the device status and the monitoring status. And under this alarms tab, you'll see any alerts that were related to that device. Those alerts will show up here under the alarms tab. So you get both monitoring and troubleshooting from a single screen. Let's quickly talk about the last tool. That's the wake on LAN tool. So this is especially useful when IT admins need to perform wake up routines on groups of devices for scheduled tasks. So you can wake up devices on command by simply selecting them and clicking on the power button here. So as long as the device supports this feature and has power, this is a neat way to save energy and still have the devices ready when needed. So that was a quick walkthrough of the networking tools available in OpUtils. Let's go back to the presentation. So now let's talk about the OpUtils network toolset as a whole. So this toolset, it gives IT admins a centralized console to perform a variety of everyday network tasks. So you can see there's 6 different groups of tools over here. Let me go into the demo directly and explain them one by one. So if I click on the toolset tab here, so you have your ping tools, your address monitoring tools, the networking tools, SNMP, Cisco tools, and the other tools. So the ping tools, you can choose to run a ping scan. You've got your SNMP ping here, you've got proxy ping, and you've even got a trace route to understand how the devices are mapped in your network. So you've also got the address monitoring tools. So this allows you to resolve MAC addresses, the MAC address resolver. You can perform DNS lookups, and you also got, you can even monitor DHCP scopes. And you've also, lastly, you've also got the MAC IP list here. So that gives you real-time mapping of all of the IP addresses to the respective MAC addresses in your network. Also got the networking tools here. So most admins will be familiar with the essentials here, like the network scanner and the port scanner. So those are vital for modern IT infrastructures. So we've also got the System Explorer here. So that provides a detailed snapshot of a device, including the disk space and the running processes. And you've got tools like the TCP reset and the system details update. And those make it easy to remotely refresh and update the device information across your network. Next, we have the SNMP tools. So here you have the MIB browser for quick SNMP operations. You've got the SNMP graph. You've got the SNMP Walker tool. You've got the MIB node viewer, the MIB module viewer, the community checker, and you've got the trap receiver. So all of these help in managing and monitoring SNMP-enabled devices. So we've also got Cisco tools here. So here you've got features like Device Scan and Device Explorer. So this lets you gain visibility over Cisco devices, including their IP address, the system name, and description. And lastly, you've got a bunch of other tools over here. You've got the WMI query tool, the CLI query tool, forward trap, forward syslog, and you've got the syslog viewer. So these provide advanced options for monitoring and troubleshooting. So with this tool set, network admins pretty much have everything they need in one place. So instead of juggling multiple third-party utilities or tools. So now let's move on to the next part of the training, which is schedules, reports, and alarms. So let's first talk about the scheduler and why do you need it. So the simple reason why you need a scheduler is to automate network scanning and to keep your IP and MAC insights always up to date. So running an on-demand scan every time is really time consuming, right? So instead, with OpUtils scheduler option, you can set up custom scans at preferred intervals for specific network resources. For example, you can schedule scans for your routers, for your Active Directory, for your IP address manager, for switch port mapper, and more. So this way, instead of constantly chasing updates, you'll always have the most current information at hand. So let's quickly see the scheduler in the product. So if I go to settings and IP address manager, and if I click on scheduler, so here I can choose to add a task. So I can enter the task name. I can choose between an IPv4 and IPv6 task. I can filter them by group. I can show the subnets in default here by IPv4 task. And I can select all of the subnets that I want to include. And then I can select the frequency of the scan. So once I configure all of this, OpUtils will automatically trigger scans for these IP ranges that I've selected at my preferred intervals. So this ensures that your IPAM data always reflects the latest network changes. For example, if you have a subnet reserved for critical devices, you can schedule more frequent scans to prevent IP exhaustion or downtime in that particular subnet. Let's talk about reports. So reports, as you know, are an indispensable part of any network management workflow. And that's because they provide clear documentation of the changes and your insights into the network activity. So OpUtils automatically generates valuable reports for both the IP address manager and the switch port mapper based on monitored resources. So let's look at that in the demo. So if I click here on reports, so you can see OpUtils provides a bunch of reports for the IP address manager and the switch port mapper. So you've got your unused IP addresses, you've got reserved or IP static address reports, you've got DHCP reports. Under switch port mapper, you've got your switch usage reports, you've got stacked port details, and then you have the scheduled reports option. So with that, you can have the reports delivered at regular intervals. And you also have an audit option here. So this lets you keep track of who is making changes within the console. So if you ever need them on demand, you can also generate report instantly, and you can export them as a CSV or a PDF file. So let's move on to the next part, which is alerts and notifications. So the alerts are a vital part of network monitoring because they allow you to proactively monitor your network, and you can fix issues before they're escalated. So with OpUtils, you can configure alerts for these for the events like IP conflicts, for ARP spoofing, and your guest device validity expiry. And you might remember that from the rogue detection module we saw earlier. So when an alert is triggered, you'll get instant notifications via syslog, email, and you get them directly inside the console as well. So this way, you'll always stay ahead of potential network threats or misconfigurations. So let's see that quickly in the demo. So under Settings and IP Address Manager, if I click on Configure Alerts, so here I can decide on the alerts that I want. So do I want to be alerted when an IP state changes, for example, from available to used? Or I can choose to be alerted when a reverse or forward lookup fails. And I can choose to be notified when the subnet utilization goes above or below a certain threshold. So the thresholds, they don't have to be 20% or 80%. You can set it to whatever works for your network. You can also configure MAC IP combination alerts here. So those are especially critical for monitoring core or sensitive devices. And if the expected MAC IP mapping changes, OpUtils will alert you immediately. And you've got also got the IP address conflict here, so that's very important. So let's say if two or more MAC addresses try to use the same IP, OpUtils will notify you of that right away. So it tells you which IPs are in conflict and which MACs are involved. So acting on these alerts will help you ensure that network connectivity will help ensure network connectivity, and it prevents these downtime caused by these sort of IP conflicts. So all of these alerts are logged in your console, so you can review them and resolve issues proactively. Now let's move on to the next section, which is user management. So what is user management and why do you need it? Well, the simple reason is to maintain network integrity while enabling collaboration. So you want to make sure that only the right people have the right level of access, right? So at the same time, you don't want to limit efficiency by unnecessarily restricting users. So that's where this OpUtils role-based access control comes in. So with role-based access control, you can create customized roles for different users or teams based on that function. And you can use predefined roles like administrator, who has full read or write access, and operator with the read-only access. So this ensures that operators only see and access what they're supposed to, while network admins maintain full control. By enabling this effective user scoping, you can define exactly who has access to which modules and which resources, and that ensures both security and efficiency. Let's quickly see that in the demo. So if I go to Settings and General Settings and under User Management, and then if I click on Roles, so here you'll notice the two default roles that you already have here, the admin role and the operator role. If I want to create a custom role, I can just click on this Add Role button. I can enter a name and description, and then I can select the permissions that I want. For example, if I want to give an operator read-write access just for IP address manager and switchport mapper, but if I only want read access for toolset, let's say, I can select those here, and I can click on Save. So this new role can be assigned to any user. And you can also add a new user in a similar way if you click on this Add User button here. Excuse me. So now let's go to the next chapter, which is why do you even need OpUtils for your network? So with so many IP address management and switchport mapping tools available in the market, why should you even choose OpUtils? So here's why. So OpUtils is both powerful and it's extremely easy to use. So getting started is really simple, right? You just download the product, you associate your resources with the console, and you'll be up and running in a matter of minutes. Unlike many other tools, there's no steep learning curve here. So the interface is clean, it's intuitive, and it's designed for IT teams. So OpUtils gives you a centralized dashboard and widgets for visibility into all of the crucial data that you're monitoring. And best of all, you can customize the dashboard to meet your specific needs, like we saw in the demo. So another major advantage is automation. So instead of wasting time on repeated and on-demand scans, OpUtils automates network scanning. So this means you can always have real-time data insights, and you can boost productivity and save a lot of valuable time. And OpUtils also comes with more than 30 built-in networking tools, so you don't have to juggle between multiple utilities to manage and monitor your network. So everything is just in one place. And for deeper visibility, you also get the in-depth utilization reports, you get instant alerts, and these help you monitor and troubleshoot issues quickly. And the product also has all the different effective modules that we saw, like the IP address manager for IP scanning, advanced IP scanning and IP tracking. You've got the switch port mapper for end-to-end port mapping. And you've got the DHCP scope monitor for simplified DHCP server and scope monitoring. So all of these modules are integrated with each other. So that gives you a holistic view of your network address space. And on the security side, OpUtils helps you detect rogue devices, and it protects your network integrity with role-based user management controls. And finally, OpUtils also has a mobile version, and you can integrate your iOS or Android devices with your on-premise deployment, and you can monitor your IP address space anytime and anywhere. So in short, OpUtils makes network management faster, simpler, and more secure, all using one unified solution. If you'd like to know more about OpUtils, please do take a look at our homepage, which is oputils.com. You can also have a look at our blogs, our tech videos on YouTube, our knowledge base, and our pit stop. Also, please do follow us on all of our social media handles. We're on LinkedIn at ManageEngineITOM. We were also on Reddit, and we also have a YouTube channel. So that's all for today's session. If you have any other questions, please feel free to post them. We'll be keeping the session open for a little bit longer, and our panelists will be happy to answer any other questions you have. So thank you so much for joining. I hope you found it insightful, and have a great day.